Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about Eragon. And this movie came out in 2006, and it's based off of a book with the same name. And I know that people like these books when they first came out, and people were excited when this movie came out. And I believe I saw this movie in theaters when it first was released. I'm not sure why. I think just my parents took me just to show me, hey, it's based off of this book that I like, and they wanted to see it, and I wound up going along with. And I don't really remember what I thought of it the first time I watched it, but rewatching it, I had a lot of notes to take down. It was a very bad movie, but it was also very funny. Like, this is a pretty good, funny, bad movie for me. Like, I could rewatch this movie right now and have a good laugh. So to start with this movie, because I honestly don't even know where to begin with this movie, so I'm just going to start somewhere with the director, Stefan Frank Meyer, if I pronounced that correctly. I have no idea. The director of this movie has never directed anything before this, nor after this. This is the only film that he's directed, and I think that says a lot. So clearly, this movie wasn't given to someone who was clearly passionate about this product, because if they were, then that's kind of embarrassing. I feel as though he was just a director for hire, or they just needed someone to direct this movie, so they just got him to do it. I don't know what the story was on that, but it clearly doesn't feel like it was made by someone who genuinely loves the source material. And I believe fans really hate this movie, and the action in this movie sucks in this movie. Like, there's not a single good action scene. There's too many close shots. Sometimes the framing is like all over the place, and you just can't make out what's going on. There's too many cuts at points, and the worst scenes in this movie are the action scenes. And not to say that the rest of the movie is good. Like, the rest of the movie, far from good. But the action scenes are a highlight, especially in this film. And there are a couple of good things in this movie. Just a couple. First off, I wasn't bored. Mostly because I was laughing at how silly this movie was. It was always so silly that I just couldn't take it seriously. And this was a good movie to watch if you want to laugh at something. The visual effects, surprisingly, held up. For 2006, I thought they looked pretty good. And for the time, at least in my mind, I remember them looking good. And even rewatching the movie almost 20 years later, they still hold up pretty well. And the movie did have some production value, and I do appreciate some of the practical action in the film. And there wasn't as much CG as I was expecting in this film. There were like sets, and they clearly tried to do something, but unfortunately it just didn't come together. And all these good-looking effects, for the most part, looked pretty good. Were just in service of nothing, unfortunately. And I just wish that they were in an actual good movie, because even the dragons and all these designs that are being thrown out, they don't look bad. But unfortunately, the rest of the movie is bad. The acting is terrible in this film, and this film isn't filled with terrible actors. Like Jeremy Irons, he's proved that he's a great actor. I really like John Malkovich, and Rachel Weisz has been proven to be great too. But in here, they just have nothing to work with, and even the rest of them, they just don't add anything. And I honestly can't really blame them all that much, because not only do they have nothing to work with, but also, even if they do have something, the movie just kind of glosses over it and doesn't really give enough time to develop anything, to make anything interesting. And I believe that was one of the criticisms with this movie when it first came out, is that it was inaccurate to the books, and they just explained a lot more as to like what was going on and why things were the way that they were. And for the most part, I did feel as though the movie had glossed over a lot of things, and could have been really interesting if it just actually developed certain things. But at the same time, I wasn't feeling a sense of everything just being rushed. It was glossed over, but I wouldn't say rushed up until the third act. And the third act just kind of happened. I was like, whoa, we're here now? And I thought the pacing wasn't terribly slow. It's about an hour and 40 minutes, which at least it's not over 2 hours. But if you're going to make this movie work, I do feel as though it has to be at least 2.5 hours or be given the Lord of the Rings treatment, where you just storyboard the entire thing. So we have a clear idea as to where to start and where to end up, and just fund all three movies so that they can't just jump board. They always have to commit. And I feel as though if they committed to that concept, the movie would have been a lot better. And I was getting some Avatar vibes while watching the movie as well. And I know Avatar came out after this movie, but I was thinking of that at a couple moments. But one film that came into my mind while watching the movie, and again, this movie came out after this, and that being 2010's The Last Airbender. And I was noticing a lot of similar problems that The Last Airbender had, and it was also in this movie. Not as bad, in my opinion. I do feel as though this movie is slightly better, simply because, in terms of telling a story and not feeling like it's just a montage movie, and although this movie does kind of feel like that, but in terms of telling a story without it feeling like a montage, I feel as though this movie does it a little bit better. Not saying that it's good, I'm just saying that's one tiny thing that I can point out and say, at least it didn't go that far. There was also a decent amount of slow motion in this movie, and it's the type of slow motion where they don't shoot it in a higher frame rate. They artificially slow it down to where you have just less frames, and there was quite a lot of that in this movie. And if you just sped it up at normal time, I feel as though the movie would be 10, 15 minutes shorter, possibly 20. And whenever this movie tries to be epic or really explore lore that is in this story, it just comes across as goofy to me. And also the villains in the movie, they were my favorite part of the movie. I was laughing whenever they were on screen. They were just like chewing up the scenery. I was loving it. John Malkovich, he was so funny to watch in this film. And I just couldn't take him seriously. I did feel as though Jeremy Irons was trying in this film, but unfortunately he just wasn't very good, if I'm going to just stay on the acting for just one more minute. There were a couple of moments where I was thinking to myself, is there supposed to be kind of a romance being set up in this movie? Because it kind of doesn't feel that way until, like, we get into the third act. Like, oh, we have a little bit of a romance kind of being set up towards the end. I'm not sure if that was in the books or not, but it just felt out of place to me. And there are a couple of plot lines in this movie that just don't go anywhere. Like, there's one sidekick character that shows up about halfway through, and they explore, like, oh, he's tied into certain things that are bad, and we can't trust him. And they just do nothing with that. And this might be a weird thing to point out about this movie, but once we got to the end credits, we were given an Avril Lavigne song, Keep Holding On, I think. And I just felt as though that song was just out of place and didn't fit the tone of the movie at all. Not saying like I can think of a song that would have fit this movie better, but still, it just felt out of place to me. But speaking of the music, I found it to be kind of boring and uninteresting, and it existed in the movie, but I couldn't tell you one note. Also, one tiny thing that bugged me in this movie was characters just having perfect teeth. That was kind of an odd decision, and it just really stood out to me. But one thing that I haven't really talked about with the director of this movie is that although he hasn't directed anything before or after this, I feel as though one positive I can say is that he did have a visual effects background, and that might be why he was chosen, possibly. And that also might explain why the visual effects look as good as they do in this film. So if there's one thing I can give the director props for, it would be that, I guess. But unfortunately, there's just not much else I can say about this movie positively. And allegedly, they're making a show based off of these books. So we'll see how that goes. I believe it's owned by Disney at the moment, and I'm not sure if the show's going to be any good or if it's going to happen. I just looked up if there was a show being developed, and possibly that's going to happen, but it hasn't been officially confirmed as far as I know. Because I honestly feel as though doing a show would give you a lot of room to develop everything properly and have like a really satisfying conclusion to a lot of these characters. Whereas this movie, it just like felt like random things happening for no reason, characters teleporting at points. That was kind of weird. And that's about all I have to say about Eragon. It was bad. It was pretty funny. I would rewatch this movie, and I would buy this movie on Blu-ray if they weren't like so expensive at the moment. But who knows? Maybe we'll get a 4K Blu-ray at some point. Maybe not. Maybe this will be forgotten about at some point. But as of recording this, I had a lot of fun laughing at it and just destroying it. And would I recommend this movie to you? Only if you're looking for a funny bad movie. If you're looking for a movie that's good unironically, then no. And I can only imagine how upset people would be. And just also at the time, I feel as though one thing that makes people extra upset about this being bad is that we also had Harry Potter coming out, and those movies were very successful and people liked. And we had Lord of the Rings, and I can name like a bunch of other book to film adaptations that left people quite happy and didn't like ruin the fan base. Whereas this movie, I don't think anyone's defending this at all. And they're probably just wondering why this movie had to be this bad. And I honestly don't see why this movie had to be as bad as it was. Because if Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and stuff like that can be successful book to film adaptations, then Eragon can be a good book to film adaptation. So that's about all I have to say about Eragon. So check this movie out if you're looking for a funny bad movie. Otherwise, skip it. And with all that being said, I'm going to give Eragon a 2 out of 10. The only reason this movie's not a 1 out of 10 is because I feel as though you can still go lower. You can still make a worse movie than this. Like, it's not good at all. Not saying there's really much good about it, but I feel like it could have been worse still. Thank you for watching my videos as always. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below you thought of Eragon, and my social media links, they will all be in the description, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see you when I get my next review up, and that is going to be for Kingdom of Heaven. And I'm going to try and see if I can watch the director's cut of that movie. So look forward to that, but until I get that up, thank you for watching and have a great day.